everyone. My name is Ian Raver. I am a manager at Deloitte Consulting, and I was one of the lead authors on the project, what retirement plan features do employees really want, which was published by the SOA, and was also one of the key developers for this choice simulator tool that serves as a supplement to that research paper. So today I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of the tool, kind of some of the different functionalities, how it works, and how you could utilize it to play with the results and take a look through and see what kind of interesting demographic slices and segmentation that you can come up with on your own. Coming through to this first tab here is the demographic filters. So this tab is highlighting some of the results of the survey. This chart here on the right, it shows the relative importance of conjoint attributes. So this is one of the bigger kind of outcomes from the survey. Really, that relative importance kind of helps you understand what level of influence do each of the particular attributes that were tested in the survey, how influential are those on a respondent's choice of a specific package. So it's kind of looking at the full range of what what levels are offered within each of these attributes and saying, all right, well, what is the absolute best one? How much is that influencing somebody to, pick a package versus the absolute worst one? How much is that kind of making somebody stay away and not want to pick a package? So this is a really great way to get a kind of snapshot of those results and see, overall relative to each other and relative only to the items tested, how influential are each of these. So what we have here is this chart that is showing a few different bar charts. We have three different ones right now. So this green one is showing that total population. This dark blue one is showing, a filtered population. And this light blue one is showing results for a second filtered population. Within this chart, we have that ability on either side to create two different filters so that we are able to compare and contrast two different groups to each other, as well as to that total population. So, for example, if I wanted to take a look specifically at my younger population, maybe I'm going to look on filter one and say, well, what do people age 18 to 24 say? And then maybe I want to expand that out and say 25 to 35. So you'll see that in the chart on the right, those results are going to update in real time to see how those are changing based on the filtered group. You'll also see up top that the percentage of the population is decreased because I'm now filtering to include only 17.4% of this population. It's at 434%. You can see here initially that the younger population, they seem to be much more concerned at the earliest age at which they can receive a full unreduced benefit, likely because they are worried about their ability to commence a benefit and take a retirement benefit. I also, again, have that ability to start to add filters to compare against it. And if I wanted to, in that second filter, look at the older population, maybe those who are closer to retirement age, I could filter on those. And if I click on these two filters, I'll do that in a slower motion. So I can click on one of them, this 55 to 64. Well, that's 25.6% of the population. I could add to that and, add another 500 or so folks in this second group. And this ends up being, around 45% of the population. Well, how do they think? Now I can look at this chart over here and see, well, this group who's closer to retirement is probably a little bit less concerned actually about when they would be able to receive that full unreduced retirement benefit. In a lot of cases, they might already be past kind of what would be considered one of the levels that we even tested. We tested kind of ages ranging 62 to 72. So a lot of people might be past that, or it just may have less of an impact on them. In addition, we have the ability to add multiple layers of filters. So, I don't have to only look at age at one given time. I could also instead look at a cohort that's age plus gender or age plus marital status or any combination, really. So if I wanted to look now at the population that's male and aged 18 to 24 and 25 to 34, I can add that extra filter, and you'll see when I toggle it on, it drops down from 434 people filtered down to 162. So you really have that ability throughout to have a number of different filters, kind of any combination that you may be interested in testing. We have a couple of buttons up here. One would be to reset the filters back to zero, but also if you are playing around and you want to take a look, you've built something interesting that you're looking at and you're trying to copy over multiple filters. You do have that ability as well to say, all right, instead of having to click through each one of these and just change one small item, I can copy all of the filters over from filter 1 and apply them to filter 2. And similarly, you have that ability to do it the opposite way. If I wanted to, now copy those over from filter 2 back over into filter 1, I can do that as well. One of the other kind of features on this tab, this relative influence is it starts off as being filtered specifically based on the total population. So it's going from highest to lowest, most influential attribute for the total population down to the lowest for, just looking at that total population. But maybe I arrive at, I have some kind of different filter and I see very different results. Maybe I want to change how I'm sorting. And maybe I'm going to sort instead by, all right, what am I seeing from the population 2? You see that there's a slight change here because they have access to retirement money before retirement as that moved up to their 5th slot, as opposed to if I'm looking at my total population, it's further down the list. So it just gives you that ability to more easily see kind of visually that kind of rank order of the relative importance of these attributes across the different populations that you may be filtering on. For now, I will reset these filters and we could take a look at the next tab. The next two tabs here, we have, it's a kind of a simulator tool, and we have two different tabs. One that looks at each different filter that we're pulling on. So if I have nothing highlighted here, then I'm looking at the entire population. But as soon as I drill down and add some of these filters, those will still flow into each of these tabs, appropriately. So again, I'll reset these for now so we can just take a look at it. But really, what this tab has the ability to do is look at any one of the different attributes that we have included in the testing and any of the different levels. So you can customize and build different packages to compare against each other to see, where respondents have different preferences. You have the ability to compare up to 4 different packages, kind of clicking in each one of these to see what you want to add or not. So right now, as a baseline, nothing has been changed. So all levels are equal across all of these packages, which is why it's 50% for one and 50% for the other. It's just dead even. If I wanted to add package 3, then it's of course split 3 ways. If I want to add a package 4, it's now split 4 ways, but I can add those or subtract those as needed. But once you get into it, you can pull any of these drop downs, and for each of these different levels tested, we're going to have each of these attributes that are tested, we're going to have multiple levels that we're looking at. So if I'm looking at an earliest age at which a respondent can receive an unreduced benefit, we tested ranges age 62 to 72. So if I want to say, okay, I'm going to now compare age 65 to age 62, well, all of a sudden you start to see a difference. There's a couple of different ways that we're looking at it, but this top one up here, it's indicating the percentage of respondents that would pick, a certain package as their first choice only. So that means 100% of the population would say, well, given these only two alternatives, I'm always going to pick package 2 over package 1 because it allows me to retire at age 62 before age 65. It kind of only looks at, what is your absolute number one first choice, whereas the second line looks at what's called an estimated share of preference. So that looks at it instead of kind of completely weighting one package to say, it's either all or nothing. It says, okay, well, I prefer a certain package, but I only prefer it to a certain extent over another. And it's a really good way to kind of look at the relative kind of intensity of a preference of one package over another. So, sure, everybody's going to pick age 62 over age 65, and that's why you have 100% up top, but it becomes a lot closer when you start to look at, well, if I'm looking at 62 versus 65 just kind of as a share of preference, it's a little bit closer here. It's a little bit of a kind of flatter look at the different shares of preference. You again, when you make that similar kind of comparison, and now you're saying, well, I can only retire at age 72 versus age 62, then you see that that share of preference, it gets much more heavily weighted towards package 2 because it becomes it's relatively much less preferable than it would be for package 1 when you're only doing age 72. And again, I can be doing multiple kind of comparisons where I'm looking at several different ages or several different complete packages if I really wanted to see how each one of these stack up against each other. Of course, we also have that ability to be doing multiple options at one time. So if I wanted to be taking a look at something where I'm able to withdraw in any pattern versus, such as kind of like a DC type plan versus monthly payments only, well, people tend to have that preference to be able to, take their money out, their retirement money out kind of at their choosing rather than just getting that monthly benefit. However, when you start to look at, the trade-off for that DC component is having a variable type of, component to my retirement benefit versus it being 100% fixed, then you see the population ends up being very split again towards the middle. However, if I really wanted to, I could take a look to see, well, are there any differences in some of these populations? So I can go back to that first tab, that demographic filters, and see, well, is there a difference for maybe my younger population? Will they have any changes in their preferences? You see, it's very slight, but there is a slight change now where there's a slight increase in preference for that variability because the younger population, for one reason or another, tends to be slightly more tolerable to that type of change. But again, we have that ability to be adding and subtracting any filters that we want and having them flow directly into the packages here. I think the kind of key thing to remember is that would need to remember that you may have filters on as you're looking at the different results. The two different tabs will be based on what is filtered either in kind of this column B, filter 1, or the column C in filter 2. So I think you just need to be a little bit mindful of that as you're kind of building these packages and taking a look through different possibilities. But I think it provides a really great way to slice and dice the information and, look at drilling down to the individual level. Like, what exactly are these specific cohorts taking, interested in, and what really motivates them? I think the other kind of key piece of information with that to consider is, right, as you're filtering down, how big a population are you looking at? Because as you drill down and try to get, extremely specific, you end up having a much smaller and smaller population. So you may want to consider the reliability of that type of sample size. However, that's kind of why we include this percentage here and the total counts here, so you can make those types of judgment calls as you're taking a look at, what are the results, how are people kind of responding versus anything else. I think this really lends itself to any individual taking a look through understanding, well, I have a population that looks like this, or I want to know more about a specific demographic segment, or I'm considering a plan design that may look in a certain way. What do people actually think about it? There's a lot of capability to really, drill down to and hone and test any specific needs that you may have as an individual, as a practitioner, as a researcher, or any other need that you have.